This segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you are joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it very, very much. And whenever we have updates and or some updated news, we always like to turn our attention to First Lieutenant Blake Tabor, Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Keith.
All right, I appreciate it. So let's talk about this very first one. Again, anytime SVU is involved, it's one of those things that our heart goes out to them. But let's talk a little bit about Mr. Bayou.
Absolutely. So, this is a case that sort of the inception started in January of this year. So it's, been 5 months in the making. But ultimately, investigators were led to identify a Logan Sonny James Bayou. It's a 29-year-old male from Houma. See him photographed here. Ultimately, our special victims unit was keyed up to some allegations of a juvenile victim being sexually assaulted by a 29-year-old male. As they began to investigate that a little further, they spoke with the victim and also a family member who confirmed that Logan Bayou was in fact the perpetrator in those crimes. During the course of that investigation, again, the juvenile outlined a lot of details about the sexual intercourse with Bayou, which occurred on at least 5 separate occasions at various locations throughout Terrebonne Parish. Ultimately, again, these are some pretty inflammatory allegations, right? Sure. And SVU always does their due diligence. We don't just take people at their word. We're making sure that we're investigating that properly. And of course, this is no different in what they did. We learned that particular series of sexual encounters lasted over a several-month period of time. Okay. So ultimately, as they continued that investigation, they were able to confirm this through evidence and also witness testimony. Okay. So that, gave us the information that we needed. And on Wednesday, May 7th, the sheriff's office located Mr. Bayou out of his place of employment on the east side of town, and ultimately he was arrested on 5 counts of carnal knowledge of a juvenile and 4 counts of indecent behavior with a juvenile. He is currently still remanded to our custody at the Terrebonne Parish Criminal Justice Complex on a over $100,000 bond for those charges. Wow.
And again, I talk about this quite often. The repercussions are not just these 5 events, these 5 accounts and 4 counts. It's the impact on this victim who very often has somebody abuse that situation and now has got to find some help with recovery. Thank God we've got some great resources through and with our parish to be able to help with
Absolutely.
that.
And look, this is far reaching. You said it best. It's not just the victim. The parents. What about the victimology of the parents? Right. It just goes far beyond just the victim alone. And if the victim was our main focus, which she is, that is going to take a long time to repair just in itself, and that's not talking about the other damage that was caused by Mr. Bayou's actions.
Right. And I'm so very glad that these things are taken so seriously and our court system says, you know what, this is over $100,000 bond. You ain't getting out.
Absolutely.
Right, until we address that. So we appreciate that. So Blake, we have another, I think, to talk a little bit about Mr.
Yeah, so this one, again, is a little more lighthearted. Right. This one occurred on Wednesday, May 7th, where we were alerted, our patrol division was alerted on that night about a theft of a motor vehicle that happened in the city limits of Houma. Okay. So again, this was a vehicle that was stolen at a gas pump of a local business. And of course, the Houma Police Department did an outstanding job of giving us, vital information, description of the suspect, exact identifiers of the vehicle involved. And again, as our patrol officers are being alert and looking around for that vehicle, they noticed that vehicle on Martin Luther King Boulevard. So once they noticed that vehicle, they were able to see inside the driver's compartment, found a person that obviously fit the description, and they made eye contact, and when unit placement was behind that vehicle, the chase was off and running. So ultimately, that vehicle traveled high rates of speed down Martin Luther King Boulevard, turning onto West Side Boulevard Extension, 311, ultimately going to a local business on Hollywood Road where that pursuit ended. But it did not end before intentional contact was made with a police unit. So a crash occurred there, causing some pretty significant damage. And then ultimately, the person left the confines of the vehicle and fled the area on foot and was quickly apprehended a short time later. Once we apprehended him, we were able to identify him as Sebastian Slade Sykes, 22 years of age. You see him photographed here. Ultimately, after being taken into custody, he was arrested on charges of aggravated flight from an officer, resisting an officer, and simple criminal damage to property. Now, keep in mind, these were charges that culminated from his actions within the parish of Terrebonne.
Right.
He had additional charges that he is facing within the city limits of Houma as it pertains to the theft of the motor vehicle. So they also have put out some information about that, which you can find on their Facebook page. But ultimately, he still remains jailed at the time of this on a no bond. I believe he has since been given a bond. What that bond is, I'm not exactly sure at this point.
Yeah, but again, it goes to the seriousness of this, a high-speed chase over one of the heavier trafficked areas with Martin Luther King West Side, 311. And, you know, just not that it hits home, but it does hit home for me. I live off of 311.
Absolutely.
You know? And so I'm just thinking how difficult this could be, and that these kinds of high rates of speed could cause a death of a motor vehicle. I mean, he rammed a police officer.
Absolutely. And look, this could happen from a complete oversight. This particular victim, through no fault of his own, left the vehicle running and unsecured, went in to pay for the gas, and 3 seconds later, the vehicle's off and running, right? But it shows the importance of the fact that we cannot leave our things unattended, no matter what part of town we're in.
Doing. Blake, appreciate the updates as always. Thanks for getting these people off the street.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right, guys, that'll do it for this particular segment, but don't go anywhere. A whole lot more right here on Bayou Time.
This segment was brought to you by Waits and Downer, attorneys at law.